The Iranian resistance has produced a 74-page report entitled Iran's Duplicitous Diplomacy, How the Regime is Exploiting the Corona Tragedy to Lift the Sanctions. Ali Reza, please go ahead.
What I'd like to elaborate on is the report that is now just being released by the National Council of Resistance of Iran, U.S. Representative Office. It's a 74-page report that basically is called How Iran's Duplicitous Diplomacy, Callous Policies Cost Lives in Iran. And basically what this report does, and I would like to elaborate on it. It just looks at some of the facts and the history, actually, how the virus actually got into the country, which I will elaborate further on that. It also talks about the impotence and the way that the Iran regime handled this whole situation in dealing with this, playing a big role in actually for the spread of the virus. There's no country around Iran, not even close, that has this level of casualties as a result of the coronavirus. And this has all to do with the regime itself and its policies from day one until right now. We also want to talk about in this report, and I will elaborate on it, how actually when it comes to the Iran regime, it's terrorism, it's their fundamentalism, it's their policies in the region, whether it's nuclear program, missile program, and particularly funding these terror groups in the region, that takes precedence over the lives of the Iranian people and over the healthcare of the Iranian people and their well-being. Also in this report, we talk about the level of resources that is now available to the regime, to Khamenei and the IRGC, which they are actually deliberately denying it from the Iranian public, and as a means to basically keep those resources for their own operations in the region and funding the repressive forces, the Revolutionary Guards and others. But also, also the recent attacks by the Iranian regime in the region, in Iraq, for instance, against Americans, how in the midst of this coronavirus, where everyone should be and everywhere else are focused on fighting this the crisis, instead they're looking elsewhere. And then their attempts and their policies and efforts, a very concerted effort to campaign in order to lift the sanctions against the Iranian regime, whether it's the United States or other countries in Europe. As we showed in the report, if really anyone wants to help the people of Iran, they need to focus on providing humanitarian and medical assistance directly to the people of Iran. They need to avoid any kind of relief that would further empower the Revolutionary Guards to further repress the Iranian population, and refrain from anything else that would actually help the Iran regime.
Right now, I'm privileged to ask Dr. Daneshgari to speak about the initiatives that they are undertaking as Iranian physicians in the United States, across the world, and also talk a little bit about the regime's approach to dealing with the coronavirus in Iran. Dr. Daneshgari, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the privilege of being here. I'd like to start my comments by sending my gratitudes and my warm hellos to my fellow physicians and medical providers inside Iran, those who are compensating for the regime's failure in helping people by putting their lives online. And as you may know, Iran has one of the highest mortalities among the medical providers. So going through this process that we all are getting educated on coronavirus, myself, along with the hundreds of other American Iranian physicians who are in the US and in Europe, Of course, we have our connections both with the providers in Iran and also with our loved ones in Iran. And there is no question that the regime's top to bottom approach has been nothing but deception, lies, and lack of support of the population. The Wall Street quoted the World Health Organization report that the death toll is 5 times higher than the officials they're acknowledging on their daily basis. And when it comes to getting the supplies to people and receiving the supplies, the spokesperson for French foreign ministry said the majority of what French delivered, which according to one of the reports by the regime itself amounted to over $4 billion, has been immediately transferred to Iraq and Lebanon by Iranian authorities. As is mentioned earlier, the regime kicked out the Doctors Without Borders as green vanilla as you can get in a humanitarian support. You know, Doctors Without Borders coming in to set up hospitals with beds, they kicked them out as they said, we don't need any supports. We have everything we need. And then now the Zarif's approach, the minister of foreign minister coming saying we are suffering because of the sanctions, absolute lie through their teeth. They have the supplies they have received, they're rejecting the supplies that the State Department is supporting here. And frankly, my number one and my colleagues' concern is any supplies that gets to the hands of Iranian regime is going to be spread through their corrupt network of the IRGC and their allies in the region. It is clear to us as professionals, again, we are looking at the public health initiatives that this government has done and where they're coming from top to bottom. As you know, CNN and Washington Post released about 2 weeks ago, I was organizing a international grouping of the physicians. They released the sites of where they have created the burial pits. Before they get into the system of creating the mitigating the situation, they created the burial pits. So this is the regime that definitely is ready to bury citizens before can get to support the citizens.